Welcome back to the Goal Line Stand. We are here with another exciting video based around the topic of college football. Now, it is the end of week 3 right now, and one of the teams that is getting a lot of hype is the USC Trojans. Now, they haven't been really, I would say, relevant for the past 6 or so years since Sam Darnold left and went to the NFL. But now I think USC is on its resurgence, especially led by head coach Lincoln Riley. And we're going to talk a lot about that here on today's episode, about just the new changes that have been going on in Los Angeles this offseason and what has really been seen on the field in all the weeks prior to week 3. Now, the Pac-12 is looking like a very, very open season for these two major Pac-12 teams and what I would consider USC and Utah. Now, these teams show a lot of strengths, but also they can have a lot of these mental mistakes and these downfalls. Now, Utah already has a loss, and then the other two teams that I would say could really oppose USC for this title spot in the Pac-12 is Oregon and Washington, both of them coming off of wins against some really good ranked teams. Washington with that great win against Michigan State last night. And then we have a really, really, really solid win that I would say is very underrated in Oregon stomping of BYU. I know it was a home game, but Oregon just looked very, very solid. Compared to what we saw against the number one team in the nation, Georgia, that Oregon team definitely looks like they've made some adjustments and made some definite improvements to their side of the ball. But nonetheless, we're talking about USC and, how I think that they could make the college football playoff and, just answering the question of whether or not USC is back or not. Because we look at a team like Texas and USC, teams that had really, really good success earlier in the 2000s but haven't had any really recent success. I think USC is in a really good position to potentially be what people would consider back. Now, there's a new era in this USC team with a new head coach in Lincoln Riley, who is a quarterback-minded coach, and with him, when he came over from Oklahoma, he brought over one of the best coordinators, in my opinion, in all of the FBS, Alex Grinch, the defensive coordinator. He's made moves. He's made moves in the transfer portal. He's made moves on the depth chart. He's been overall one of the greatest defensive coordinators I've seen, especially in the past 3 years. Just the improvements that they've made and just the changes that have been made on the depth chart and just seeing in the past 3 games on the field are something that I don't think many people will look at and just attribute that to Alex Grinch. They will mostly go back to Lincoln Riley and how good of a job he's done on the staff, which he has. But some of the great qualities from this USC team come from the defense. Now, they have some really, really good players and guys like Eric Gentry and Shane Lee, very good linebacker tandem. I would say one of the best in the nation because they have a lot of tackles. Now, that linebacker tandem really doesn't let many people pass them, especially playing that Pac-12 style of football where the running backs are the key parts to most of their offense. You need a really, really solid linebacker, and USC has 2 of them. But when you look at the flashy style that USC plays with, the flashy style that USC has historically played with, you look at guys like Reggie Bush, you look at guys like now I'm looking at Jordan Addison to be one of the next flashy players that you look at in Southern California, and especially since he's getting the ball thrown to him by Caleb Williams, a guy who I have, and this will be an upcoming video, but I have him ranked number 2 in my Heisman watch list. Caleb Williams had a great freshman year at Oklahoma, makes the surprise transfer to USC, and now he's having a great year. I'm not surprised by this in the slightest. He has the size, he has the stature, he has the composure that you want to be in a great quarterback. And now he has the reigning Biletnikoff Award winner, also a transfer from Pittsburgh, in Jordan Addison. In just these 3 games, they've linked up for a total of 5 touchdowns, which is just insane. If they can keep that up, we're looking at some really, really great historic numbers that they could be putting up, especially in this kind of weak Pac-12. That's what I would say. Now, the road to a potential college football playoff and the road to a Pac-12 championship game is not going to be an easy one. They're going to have to face a lot of these stronger teams, but I would say the 3 games that I'd be looking out for on the rest of USC's schedule would be teams like the Notre Dame game at the end of the year. You can't ever look past that, but even sooner, you look at the Utah game, potentially what we would see as the Pac-12 championship game later in the year, but Utah is one of those teams, even though they lost against Florida in week 1, Utah is not a team you want to overlook because they are scrappy and they play a great physical brand of football led by head coach Kyle Whittingham. You do not want to be playing there, even though it is a home game. And then they have UCLA, a very, very bitter rivalry. It's at the Rose Bowl, and that place, while it's not really known for earlier in the season to be packed, when it is a big game, that place can get rocking, especially if it's going to be USC, UCLA. And then finally, we already addressed it, but the Notre Dame game at the end of the year, it's another rivalry game for USC, but definitely not something yet you want to overlook because of this shaky start for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish earlier in this year. But here's where I kind of hit a roadblock with this USC team. USC has a lot of great offensive weapons. We talk about Caleb Williams. We talk about Jordan Addison. Running back Travis Dye, he's really solid. And, their defense is really solid too. But if you are in a situation for this team, if you lose a game, then you have to really be fighting, into my eyes, the teams that I think could potentially have one loss and a conference championship, which would be Oklahoma, a team like Clemson, a team like Michigan. These teams can be overlooked right now. Oklahoma had a great game this past weekend. Dylan Gabriel was on another level, the UCF transfer. Clemson, if they make a change at quarterback here, I think that Clemson could be one of those clear spots that we see in the college football playoff because Cade Klubnik, I think, uses that Clemson offense way better than we see in DJ Uiagalelei. And then finally, the Michigan Wolverines. Now, this was a tricky pick for me because I think Michigan is a really good team, and just saying that they could be a one-loss team might get a little bit of eyebrows raised there because Michigan could very well be a one-loss team if they go and lose a big game, maybe to Penn State or maybe to Michigan State or at the end of the year to Ohio State. But you can't overlook those types of teams right now, and those will be the teams that USC really has to fight it out for to potentially get that last spot in the college football playoff. Now, I think USC has a great chance. I think Lincoln Riley is a great coach, but one of the things that Lincoln Riley's Oklahoma teams didn't deal well with was the stretch in October. Now, there's 4 games for the Trojans in October. Lincoln Riley historically has lost a game every single October, and that is really not what you want to have. And, he's had a great run getting to the playoffs, just hasn't ever been to the national championship game, always losing in that college football playoff semifinals. I think Lincoln Riley has one of the best rosters that he's ever had in all of his years as a head coach here with this Trojan team. But could they potentially get over and break that Lincoln Riley October curse? That's all up in the air. But finally, answering the question, do I think USC is a serious contender? My answer is 100% yes. The USC Trojans are not a team that you want to be messed with, especially because I say they're the clear favorite to win that Pac-12 conference right now, at least in my eyes. And it is only very earlier in the year, but they've shown that they can really score when other teams can't. They've outscored their opponents 152-59 through 3 games. Definitely not what you want to be seeing if you're an opposing defensive coordinator. Now, if you liked what you heard from today's video, please consider subscribing and stay tuned for more college football content.